Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin today with a simple idea, one that changed the entire direction of my life. And here it is. Your life will always rise or fall to match the picture you hold of yourself. Not the picture others have of you, not the picture you post online, but the one you see in the mirror when the room is quiet and the world isn't watching. You can give two people the same opportunity, the same tools, the same advice. One takes off like a rocket. The other never leaves the ground. Why? Well, it isn't the opportunity. It isn't the tools. It isn't even the advice. It's the identity behind the effort. The way you see yourself sets the ceiling. And if that ceiling is low, my friend, you can spend your whole life bumping your head and wondering why success feels hard. See, you don't get out of life what you want. You get out of life who you are. Your results don't follow your wishes. They follow your self-image. And here's the part most people never realize. Your self-image is not fate. It's not written in stone. It's design. Just like a house, a business, or a garden, it can be redesigned, rebuilt, and renewed. But most people never redesign it. They inherit it. They pick it up from parents, teachers, neighbors, critics, from old disappointments and ancient memories. And they carry that outdated picture into every new opportunity, and then they wonder why nothing changes. So today, I want to talk about something powerful, how to intentionally build a self-image so strong, so clear, so well designed that your life has no choice but to obey it. Because success doesn't start with money. It doesn't start with talent. It doesn't start with luck. Success starts with identity, and identity can start today. If you're willing, over these next segments, we'll lay out a 30-day plan to rebuild the picture you hold of yourself, the blueprint that controls everything else. And once that picture changes, your habits change, your decisions change, your relationships change, your results change, your life changes. And it all begins with the foundation, your philosophy, which is exactly where we're heading next. Now, let's lay the foundation. And if you've listened to me for any length of time, you know what I consider the foundation of everything, your philosophy. Your philosophy is simply the set of beliefs you carry about life, about opportunity, about responsibility, and most importantly, about yourself. It's the guidance system for your behavior. It's the lens through which you see the world. And it quietly directs every decision you make. Most people think their problems come from circumstances. But let me give you a little truth, maybe one you've heard me say before. Your circumstances don't shape your life nearly as much as your philosophy does. Two people can grow up in the same house, in the same town, facing the same challenges, yet end up living completely different lives. The difference isn't the weather, it's the worldview. But here's the challenge. Most people never examine their philosophy. They never ask where their beliefs came from. They never question why they think the way they think. They simply accept the first set of ideas they bumped into as children and carry them all the way into adulthood, sometimes all the way into old age. And that's dangerous, because an outdated philosophy can keep you trapped. A borrowed philosophy can keep you small. And a broken philosophy? Well, that can have you building your whole life on a foundation that was never strong enough to hold your dreams. So here's the first real assignment on your 30-day journey. Sit down and write out the beliefs you hold about yourself. All of them, the good ones, the shaky ones, the ones you never say out loud. And then ask a simple question. Where did this belief come from, and is it helping me or hurting me? You might discover that some of your beliefs aren't yours at all. You might find the voice of a parent who meant well but spoke in fear. You might find the memory of a failure you never forgave yourself for. You might find an old wound trying to masquerade as wisdom. And once you see it, once you shine a little light on it, something remarkable happens. You gain the power to redesign it. See, your self-image isn't permanent. It's just a story you've rehearsed long enough to think it's true. But stories can be rewritten. And the moment you change the philosophy, you change the direction of your life. So we begin here with awareness, with honesty, with a willingness to rebuild the foundation. Because if the foundation is right, we can build something magnificent on top of it. And speaking of building, now that we've cleared the ground, it's time for the next step, creating the new picture, the self-image blueprint that will guide everything that follows. Now that we've examined the foundation, the beliefs you've carried, the ideas you've inherited, the philosophy that's been steering your life, it's time for the next step. And this step is powerful. It's creative. It's the beginning of everything. You must build the new picture, the blueprint, the self-image of the person you intend to become. You see, everything in life is built twice. First in your mind, then in your reality. Before a builder lays a single brick, he sits down with a blueprint. Before the skyscraper rises, someone has already seen it in their imagination. Before the door exists, before the window is measured, before the foundation is poured, someone wrote it down, drew it, designed it. And yet, most people try to build their lives with no blueprint at all. They simply wake up each day hoping things will work out, hoping they'll become successful, hoping they'll develop confidence, hoping the future will somehow be brighter than the past. But my friends, hope is not a design, and a life with no blueprint becomes a life built by accident. So here's the next assignment, and I promise you, it's one of the most important exercises you'll ever do. Sit down and write out, in detail, the person you intend to become. Not the things you want, not the goals you hope to achieve, not the prizes or the trophies or the applause. Those are results. We're talking about identity. Ask yourself, who must I become for all of those things to be possible? Describe that person. Write out how they speak, how they think, how they treat themselves, how they respond to challenges, how they handle responsibility, how they manage their money, their time, their health, their relationships. Write down the disciplines they keep, the habits they practice, the standards they live by. Because until that picture is clear, you will drift. You will move, but you will not progress. You will work, but you will not advance. You will hustle, but you will not transform. A poor self-image makes every goal feel out of reach. A powerful self-image makes every goal feel inevitable. And something remarkable happens once you create this blueprint. Your mind, that incredible, loyal, obedient servant, begins to rearrange your behavior to match the picture you've drawn. You start making different choices without even realizing why. You start saying no to things you used to tolerate. You start seeing opportunities you used to overlook. You start stepping into the identity you designed. Because the mind is always trying to stay consistent with the script you give it. So give it a better script. Give it a higher vision. Give it a picture worthy of the life you want. Now that the blueprint is forming, now that you've drawn the person you intend to become, we move to the next part of this journey, feeding that identity with new inputs, new ideas, and new materials so it can take shape from the inside out. Now that you've drawn the blueprint, the clear, intentional picture of the person you intend to become, it's time to start feeding that identity the proper materials. And let me tell you something I learned early in my journey. You cannot build a new life with the same old inputs. It just won't work. Your mind is like a construction site. Every day, something is being built. The only question is, who's supplying the materials? For a lot of people, the material comes from random noise, whatever shows up in the news, whatever scrolls across the screen, whatever someone else says about them. But if you're building a new identity, you can't leave the supply chain up to chance. You have to take charge. You have to become the architect and the contractor. So I want to give you 3 disciplines, 3 daily inputs that will begin shaping your new self-image from the inside out. 1, read 30 minutes a day. Not entertainment, not gossip, not the latest distraction. I mean reading that expands your thinking, elevates your philosophy, sharpens your understanding, reading that feeds the person you intend to become. When I was young, I discovered books could do what circumstances couldn't. They could transform me. A book is like a mentor you can carry in your hands. Wisdom becomes portable. Advice becomes available on demand. And here's the miracle. The more you read, the more you begin to think like the people you're reading from. That's how you start rewriting the script in your mind. 2, journal every evening. Sit down with yourself for a few minutes at the end of the day and write. Write what you did. Write what you felt. Write what you learned. Write what you intend to improve tomorrow. Journaling is how you meet yourself on paper. It's how you see the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. It's how you extract meaning from your experiences instead of letting the day disappear into memory. Reflection gives shape to identity. 3, speak to yourself with dignity. And this one is big, bigger than most people realize. Most people talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to a friend. They criticize, condemn, doubt, belittle. And then they wonder why confidence never sticks. But confidence doesn't come from praise. It comes from alignment. It comes from speaking to yourself in a way that supports the self-image you are building. So from now on, your self-talk must match your blueprint. Speak as if you are becoming that person. Speak as if your words hold weight because they do. Your mind listens. Your identity listens. Your future listens. If you want to build a stronger self-image, you must feed it stronger words. And that's the power of daily inputs. They're small, but they're steady. They don't make you new overnight, but they start the transformation from within. And if you stay consistent, they create a mind that begins to believe in the person you're designing. Now that we've begun supplying the right materials to the mind, the next step is to raise the standards, the rules your future self lives by. Now that the mind is receiving new material, new books, new thoughts, new reflections, it's time for something just as important, new standards. Because let me tell you something I've learned after many years of observing people. You don't get what you want in life, you get what you tolerate. Your standards are the invisible boundaries that shape your behavior. They determine what's acceptable, what's unacceptable, and what's non-negotiable. And if your standards stay low, your life stays low. If your standards rise, everything else rises with them. Most people have dreams that sit miles above the standards they live by. And that's the reason their dreams stay dreams. You cannot pursue excellence while tolerating habits that belong to your old self-image. You cannot move toward a new life while dragging along the behaviors that kept you stuck. So here's the next step in your 30-day transformation. Write out the standards your future self lives by and make them non-negotiable. Not preferences, not wishes, not I'll try. I mean standards, rules. Self-governance. Start with this question. What behaviors have been keeping me small? Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's inconsistency. Maybe it's keeping the wrong company. Maybe it's talking down to yourself. Maybe it's making excuses when you know you had more to give. Whatever it is, identify it. Because you cannot rise while holding on to the habits that pulled you down. Then, once you've identified what must go, write the standards that must take their place. Standards like, I keep the promises I make to myself. I do what I said I'd do, even when the mood has changed. I don't let small distractions steal big opportunities. I speak to myself with respect, even in difficult moments. I start my day with intention, not reaction. I spend time with people who raise my thinking, not lower it. These are standards, and standards change identity. Because once you raise your standards, you raise your life. Once you say, this is who I am now, your behavior begins to follow that declaration. It's one of the great mysteries of the human mind. We always move toward the rules we set for ourselves. But here's the key. Standards must be lived, not just written. They must be practiced daily until they become part of the fabric of who you are. And as you begin to enforce these new standards, something powerful happens. The gap between who you were and who you're becoming begins to widen. You start leaving behind the old version of yourself, the version that tolerated too much and expected too little. Now, once these standards are in place, we must look at something just as important, the environment you're living in. Because even the strongest standards can't survive in a poisonous environment. Now that you've set new standards, the rules your future self will live by, we arrive at one of the most decisive forces in shaping your identity, your environment. And let me tell you, this is a big one. Because you can write the finest goals, rehearse the greatest intentions, adopt the strongest disciplines, but if your environment contradicts the identity you're trying to build, your environment will win every time. Human beings are programmable. We're influenced. We adapt. We blend in with the attitudes, the habits, and the expectations of the people around us. And here's the simple truth. You will always rise or fall to the level of your surroundings. Some people wonder why change is hard. Well, it's hard Because they're trying to grow in soil that doesn't support growth. They're trying to change their self-image while living in an environment that reinforces the old one. It's like planting a seed in concrete and hoping it becomes a tree. The problem isn't the seed, it's the soil. So here's the next task in your 30-day journey. Audit your environment. Take an honest look around and ask, does my environment support the person I'm trying to become? Or does it sustain the person I'm trying to leave behind? Let's break it down. 1. Audit the people. Jim Rohn said it for decades. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your self-image is shaped by the expectations of your circle. If you're surrounded by people who settle, you will shrink. If you're surrounded by people who complain, you'll learn the language of limitation. But if you surround yourself with people who aim higher, who think bigger, who expect more of themselves, you'll start reaching higher almost automatically. 2. Audit the content you consume. Your phone, your videos, your music, your feeds. These are not entertainment. These are inputs. These are voices teaching you how to see yourself. Ask yourself, is the content I'm consuming reinforcing the self-image I'm trying to build? If not, it's time to curate what comes through the door of your mind. 3. Audit your physical environment. Cluttered desk, cluttered room, cluttered life. Your surroundings tell your mind what to expect. Clean up the space where you think. Organize the space where you create. Your environment should say, someone disciplined lives here, because if you want a new identity, you must live in a place that reflects it. 4. Audit your conversations. Some conversations elevate your vision. Others erode it. Some challenge you to grow. Others pull you back into old patterns. Pay attention to how you feel after talking to someone. Drained or driven, weakened or strengthened, smaller or larger. Your self-image listens to every conversation you engage in. And here's the great news. You don't need to remove everyone from your life. You simply need to rebalance the influences. Spend less time with the voices of doubt and more time with the voices of growth. Less time with people who confirm the old you, and more time with people who expect the new you. You'd be amazed how quickly your identity shifts when your environment begins saying, this is who we are now. We grow here. Now that the environment is aligned, now that the soil is fertile, it's time for the next step. Taking new actions that prove your new identity to yourself. Now that your environment is aligned, the soil is fertile, and the blueprint is clear, we reach a defining stage of this transformation, the stage where your new identity begins to take shape through action. And make no mistake, my friends, identity is not confirmed by what you think. Identity is confirmed by what you do. You can change your philosophy. You can draw the blueprint. You can fill your mind with new ideas. But the moment of truth arrives when you step out into the world and behave like the person you're becoming. Because here's something I discovered early in my own journey. Your mind does not believe what you tell it. Your mind believes what you prove to it. Confidence doesn't come from motivational quotes. It comes from evidence. Self-respect isn't built through affirmation. It's built through action. A new identity isn't born in a journal. It's born in the daily decisions you make when nobody is watching. So here's your task for the next 30 days. Every day. Take one courageous action your old self would avoid. Just one. Not 10. Not a dozen. Just one. Why? Because every courageous action is a vote. A vote for the identity you're building. Each vote strengthens the picture. Each vote moves the needle. Each vote tells your mind, this is who we are now. Let me give you a few examples. 1. The old you avoids difficult conversations. The new you makes the call, expresses the truth, sets the boundary. 2. The old you delays the important tasks. The new you sits down, starts early, pushes through resistance. 3. The old you hesitates when opportunity knocks. The new you says yes, steps forward, learns on the way. 4. The old you lets fear decide. The new you takes the action anyway. Courage is fear under disciplined command. 5. The old you talks down to yourself. The new you speaks with authority, clarity, respect. These small, courageous acts may not seem dramatic in the moment, but here's the miracle. Your identity accumulates every one of them. It counts them. It remembers them. And slowly, quietly, consistently, they begin to rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are. Identity builds through repetition. Courage compounds. Self-trust grows. And one day, without knowing exactly when it happened, you wake up and discover that you naturally behave like the person you used to imagine. And that's the day your life begins to change. Because the world always adjusts to match the person you've become. Now that you've taken courageous action, now that you're proving your new identity step by step, we move to the next stage. The 30-day transformation cycle that integrates everything together into one powerful process. Now that we've talked about your foundation, your blueprint, your inputs, your standards, your environment, and your courageous actions, it's time to bring everything together into a structure, a rhythm, a cycle you can follow day by day. Because transformation doesn't happen in one grand gesture. Transformation happens in cycles, in patterns, in repeated motion. And let me tell you something. 30 days of disciplined, intentional living can make you almost unrecognizable, not to others, but to yourself. You begin to see glimpses of the future self. You begin to feel momentum. You begin to believe, perhaps for the first time in years, that you can build a life worthy of the person you're becoming. So let me give you the full 30-day cycle, week by week, exactly as I'd teach it to a new student sitting across my kitchen table, pen in hand, ready to redesign their life. Week 1, awareness and clearing. Remove the old blueprint. The first week is not about building. The first week is about clarifying. You cannot build a new identity on top of an old one. You cannot plant new seeds in a garden full of weeds. So the first 7 days are for awareness and removal. Here's what you do. Identify your limiting beliefs. Write out your old self-image, the inaccurate picture that kept you small. Acknowledge the habits that weakened your self-trust. Clean your physical environment. Reduce exposure to negative influences. Remove the noise that drowns out your potential. Introduce silence, reflection, clarity. This is the week where the fog begins to lift. You start to see yourself without distortion. You start to recognize the stories you've been living inside. By the end of this week, you're ready to build, truly build on solid ground. Week 2, identity inputs. Feed the new self. Once the old clutter is gone, the mind becomes fertile. It becomes open. It becomes ready for new construction. Week 2 is about intentional inputs. Daily reading, 30 minutes. Nightly journaling, 10 minutes. Intentional self-talk, all day long. Clear, detailed visualization of your blueprint. Repetition of your new standards. This is where the new identity begins to take root. Not through force, through nourishment. You begin to think differently. You begin to speak differently. You begin to notice things you used to overlook, opportunities, ideas, patterns. This week builds the mental architecture that supports your future. Week 3, courage and proof, small acts, big shifts. Now that your mind has received the vision, now that the blueprint is becoming familiar, it's time to give your identity proof. Every day this week, you take one courageous action. Not 5, not 10, just one. Why? Because the identity believes what you do, not what you intend. In week 3, you have the tough conversation. You complete a task you've avoided. You wake up earlier than you feel like. You follow a schedule you wrote the night before. You say no to something that drains your energy. You say yes to something that aligns with your blueprint. You confront a fear you've carried for years. Each act is a vote for the person you're becoming. And after 7 days of courageous action, your new self-image begins to solidify. It becomes real. It becomes believable. It becomes yours. Week 4, integration and confirmation become the architect. The last week is where everything comes together. This is where identity becomes behavior, and behavior becomes habit, and habit becomes character. Week 4 is about living as the new version of yourself. Review the entire month with honesty. Celebrate your wins, even the small ones. Study your setbacks without shame. Update your blueprint with new clarity. Strengthen your standards. Reinforce your environment. Plan the next 30 days with precision. By now, your old identity has weakened. Your new identity has momentum. Your mind has evidence. Your life has direction. And one morning, usually around the end of week 4, you look in the mirror and realize something powerful. You're no longer trying to become the new self. You are the new self. That's the moment transformation begins, working on autopilot. No more forcing. No more guessing. No more doubting. You simply live according to the blueprint you designed. The identity you crafted now drives the behavior that shapes the life. And that brings us to the final part of this journey. The closing message, the final reminder, the note you carry with you into the months ahead. Your life will now rise to meet the person you have decided to become. Well, my friends, we've reached the end of this journey, at least the end of the explanation. Because the real journey begins when you put down the notes, close the journal, and take your first step as the architect of your own identity. And that's what I want to leave you with today. See, life doesn't change because you heard something inspiring. Life doesn't change because you took good notes. Life changes when identity changes, and identity changes when action becomes aligned with design. You now have a blueprint. You have a foundation. You have the inputs, the standards, the environment, the courage, and the plan. You have a 30-day cycle that can begin reshaping your self-image from the inside out. But none of it matters until you make one critical decision, the decision to start. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when you finish every book, every video, every lecture. Start now. Start today. Start exactly where you stand, with exactly what you have. Because here's the truth I learned many years ago. Your life is not waiting on opportunities. Your life is waiting on you. Waiting on you to design it. Waiting on you to lead it. Waiting on you to become the person who can step into the future you've imagined. Most people spend their whole lives reacting to circumstances, reacting to problems, reacting to the opinions of others. But the great life, the meaningful life, the fulfilled life, is built by those who decide to create instead of react. Become the creator of your days. Become the designer of your philosophy. Become the author of your habits. Become the guardian of your environment. Become the person your future requires. And let me give you one final thought, something I've repeated for decades because it's always true. If you want your life to change, you must change. And when you change, everything changes. Your relationships change. Your opportunities change. Your results change. Your future changes. But most importantly, your self-respect changes. And let me tell you, there's nothing quite like that feeling, the feeling of looking in the mirror and realizing that you've kept a promise to yourself, that you've become someone worthy of the life you're building, someone capable, someone disciplined, someone intentional. That's the reward of identity work. That's the payoff for 30 days of design, discipline, and courage. It's not the goals. It's not the money. It's not the applause. It's becoming someone you're proud to meet each morning. So take the blueprint, take the habits, take the courage, take the plan, and begin. Because now you know the truth. Your life will always rise to meet the person you decide to become. And you've just decided to become someone extraordinary. Now go build the evidence. Go build the habits. Go build the identity. Go build the life.